Hey folks, I'm Sir Vainglory, and this is my 9th Anatomy of a Battle video for Steel Division. This one features a battle between the 15th Infantry Division and the 3rd Fallschirmjägers, commanded by Kaby, and we're battling on the Omaha map. So if you've watched the last couple of videos, you'll be aware that I've been focusing on playing an armoured deck for a while, so I decided to go back and retweak my 15th Infantry Division Battlegroup and give it a run out and try and put into practice some of the things I'd learned over the last couple of battles. On the Omaha map, there are key points for me to hold on the right hand side. There's a small village there, and in the centre there's another village. On the right hand side there's also a strong defensive position for the Germans on the right. So my plan is to just hold the right and the centre and to push hard on the left. I think that's my best chance of breaking through his lines. And I don't plan to rush forward. It's something that I'm pretty guilty of, is trying to push on as soon as I get into closing range. But with this one I'm going to hold off until I've built up a reasonable enough force of infantry, artillery and armour on the left to push hard with. So what I plan to do is to move up two similar forces on the right hand side. There's a recce section, a 6-pounder anti-tank gun and a Vickers heavy machine gun. So I'm moving one up on the right flank into the town and another one up in the centre right into the tree line. On the left hand side I've got 4 infantry squads and a dingo command car moving in towards the village, and a recce section moving up towards the tree line on the left flank. It's spotted by a pack and taken out, so that there goes my forward vision, but I still do have the 6-pounder anti-tank gun in the left flank to cover any advance there. The Germans have the perfect opposition to the units that I've got. On the right hand side here they've got a scout sniper and a heavy machine gun that engage my heavy machine gun and anti-tank gun. I try to pull the anti-tank gun back behind the trees, but it moves forward again and gets pinned. And my heavy machine gun on the right hand side there also gets pinned. I've also spotted a pack up on the right hand side at the crossroads in the town. But in the centre right I move my machine gun carrier forward beyond the tree line to try and support the Vickers. However, the Vickers is wiped out, and when my machine gun carrier moves up, as soon as it engages the units in the building there, heavy machine gun in the building, it's targeted by a pack, and the first couple of shots from the pack go wide, but the third shot comes in and damages the transmission. The fourth shot comes in, knocks out the weapons, and the fifth shot knocks out the carrier. So all I'm left with now in the centre right is my recce section, but at least they'll know if the Germans push anything into that gap they've created in the line. As it turns out they don't, but it was a consideration, so I was pushing up some infantry to reinforce that area. And the left hand side, my first reinforcements there are arriving. I've got a Churchill 5 support tank coming up, and I also call in a few infantry squads and another Vickers heavy machine gun to fill the gaps. But the Germans already control 55% of the map, and their commander seems content just to sit and hold what he has. The only offensive movement is with the snipers, and a second scout sniper appears on the left flank and targets my 6-pounder, which I pull back into the trees. But I've now got another Vickers moving up here to support the tank and the ATG. On the right hand side my infantry's moving up behind the cover of the trees and pushing back the front line marker, which is good to see.
Be careful. Enemies nearby.
So I know that there's still a heavy machine gun there as well as the anti-tank gun and a sniper there, so it'd be suicidal to move those units out into the open, so I'm quite happy to leave them sitting behind the tree line for now. I've decided to deploy the Vickers heavy machine gun in the village in the centre left rather than out in the left flank, so that slowly makes its way across there. And we're about halfway through phase A now, and I'm only beginning to build up my force to push forward on the left. and getting intel on what the Germans have got opposing me there is essential. So the first thing I do is to call up a couple of more recce squads and have infantry following behind them. I want one recce squad to focus on the left flank, another on the centre left. I reckon that the pack will still be covering that road in the left flank, so I move the Churchill in towards the centre left, where I expect it to be less exposed to fire and the anti-tank fire. My infantry's now arrived on the left flank, so I debus them pretty far back and just push them forward. I'm not in a hurry. I do need to wait for artillery and armour to come in, and I'm bringing in a 2-inch mortar to support the left flank. On the right, I've decided to create a diversion now and have the mortar lay smoke into the field in front of my infantry. I'm hoping that the Germans might pull some units over to help defend if he thinks this is the flank that I'm going to push on. So I just lay down a few smoke shells. I don't really have any intention of advancing in that area at all. Not just now anyway. So having laid some smoke, I decide to start pushing forward my recce section that's there. I want to move it diagonally to the right into the trees and the farm in between where the infantry is and where the mortar is. So I start pushing those two guys forward. But as soon as they break cover, the scout sniper spots them and he takes out one of the guys straight away. The second guy continues forward through cover. But of course I had given him the orders and then gone somewhere else, so he continues to move forward and the sniper takes him out. The sniper was highly effective, in fact they all were. I can't see him but I know roughly where he is, so I call in mortar fire to try and take him out. Also I move my machine gun carrier further out to the right, hoping to find some German paratroopers to shoot at. Unfortunately I don't. Over on the left I start pushing the recce section by the road towards the left to scout that area out in preparation for the advance, and also begin moving the infantry up towards my front line. As the recce squad moves across the open field here, it spots the pack up in the tree line in the middle distance, so it is still there covering the road as I expected. So the recce spots it and continue into the trees to check out the farm. The infantry continues to move forward and I call in smoke from the mortar to screen off the road. I plan to advance my Churchill across to the left hand flank and support the infantry advance. And also there doesn't seem to be anything in the farm at the moment, so I want to push my recce squad a bit closer. And as soon as they start to move, they spot Fallschirmjägers in the buildings, so they are engaged. And with that I decide to start pushing my infantry forward to support the recce units, and I call in mortar fire on the farm to try and suppress the German infantry. I do have a Honey and a couple of Churchills moving up to support, but it's going to be a couple of minutes before they're in position, and I'm thinking I should maybe have just held off and let things play out as they would with the recce section, rather than committing to an attack before I was really ready. But at the moment I think I've got 3-1 advantage in numbers, plus the tank coming in and the mortar in support, so I think I'm okay to go ahead. The tank gets into position and does get a few shots off from the machine gun before the smoke from the mortar comes in. And with the Germans masked off, I decide to push forward now in towards the farm. We do spot a Fallschirmjäger Führer unit moving across to the left, which is obviously going to buff up their morale. But with the tank now in support and the smoke screen out in front, I begin pushing the infantry forward. So now we have a 4-1 advantage in terms of infantry numbers, plus the tank and the mortar. But in a sign of things to come, the German commander brings in an HS-129, which targets my Churchill. Nice side armour shots, take it out. So, as my infantry moves up, it spots the Fallschirmjäger Führer squad in the trees ahead, that's buffing up the infantry, and the Honey Stuart engages them with its machine guns, but another HS-129 comes in and targets and destroys the Honey. I bring in a Spitfire to target the HS-129, but the German counters with two ME-109s. I managed to damage the HS-129, but then I lose the Spitfire, and I'd unwisely called in a second Spitfire to try and make it 2v2. But obviously it's now a 2v1 in the Germans' favour, and before I can evac the Spitfire, they engage, take some damage, and I'm hoping that it's going to make it off the map, but the Germans swing around quickly, and there goes the Spitfire. Things are going slightly better on the ground though, because I've managed to get the German squad to surrender, but a strafing run from the ME-109s comes in and pins a couple of one of my squads, so almost suppresses another. And I get a glimpse of another German squad moving up along the road to reinforce. The ME-109s keep making strafing runs, but I'm able to keep pushing, and I'm getting back towards 50-50 control of the map. So as I push forward, I detect a few more units, but the 109s keep on strafing me and slowing me down. And the pack then reveals itself again, exchanges shots with the Churchill and takes it out in a second shot. So it's clear that I really need artillery to support the advance here, but with the ME-109s flying around unopposed, I know that I need AA units as well, so I bring in a Crusader in the hope that I'll be able to do a bit of a dual role for me. The advance on the left flank is now stalled, so I've called in a 25 pounder as my next reinforcement so that I can try and soften up the Germans a bit in advance of a push with the next lot of infantry that I'll bring in. And I'd lost sight of the pack again, and the mortar had used up all its smoke and was suppressing Germans instead. So when the pack moved across, I was able to take out my Churchill, and I also took out the machine gun carrier. So with things being stalled on the left, I push forward the infantry in the village here at the centre left to try and keep some sort of momentum going and stop the Germans from collecting victory points. I've got 4 squads there, a Vickers heavy machine gun and the Dingo command car in support, and at this point the only visible opposition is a single Fallschirmjäger squad, and you can see that despite the rate of fire that I'm pouring in on that German squad, it's not building up suppression at all. So 2-star Fallschirmjägers are pretty tough troops. One of my squads on the left hand side, advancing up through the trees there, is quickly pinned down. And again it's a scout sniper that does the damage. So I decide that I'm going to try a push on the right, and I'll lay some smoke to cover the withdrawal of the infantry from behind the trees and move it across towards the town. German reinforcements are moving up on the left flank, but I've now got the 25 pounder deployed and laying down fire in their forward positions. But my advance at the village is ground to a halt. So 25 pounder just continues to shell the Fallschirmjägers by the road there. But I do need to get more infantry forward to push that advance. On the right hand side I discovered that my infantry didn't move backwards the way I'd expected. It moved forwards and then ran right into the enemy held town. So they're engaged by units to the flank and ahead of them, and they're forced to unload, and they're all pinned down in the open. I do what I can with the mortar to try and support them, but I know already they're a lost cause. On the left flank, my 25 pounder and the mortar suppressed the Fallschirmjägers in the forest, and I'm desperately hoping to get some infantry in there to press the advantage. You can see in the neutral mode that they don't have anything really there on the left that isn't falling back. I'm wary of more German aircraft coming in, so I've brought in a Tripolston for extra cover on the left hand side. And in the centre left it looks as though the Germans have moved infantry over from the left flank to help defend against my push there, and I've retasked my 25 pounder to support the centre left while the mortar continues to stop Germans pushing us back on the left hand flank. So it does really take artillery to be able to effectively suppress the Fallschirmjägers. My infantry in the centre right have been hammered by sniper fire and a Fallschirmjäger squad ahead of them in town. And even with support from the mortar, they just can't get unpinned. And then things get worse when an enemy or a Focke-Wulf bombs the mortar and takes it out. In the village in the centre left, an off-map artillery barrage comes in, and it pins everything there down and almost destroys a couple of squads. But I've finally got more reinforcements moving up on the left. There's another Churchill there and some infantry coming in now. So hoping to get enough forward there to be able to push before the Germans can reinforce. But over on the right side, the sniper has switched target to my Vickers heavy machine gun that I was trying to suppress him with, and it effectively deals with that, leaving the infantry completely unsupported and again creating a gap in the front line. So I'll leave my 25 pounder targeting the centre for now, as I think I might have an opportunity to push forward there if I can muster the troops, and pressing there might prevent the Germans from exploiting that gap they created on the right hand side. But again, I don't have the weight of force there to push forward. And infantry in the town on the right almost eliminated. The sniper in particular dealt so much damage, even having been targeted by mortar fire and heavy machine gun fire, is able to sit and pick off my guys. Over on the left, I've brought in a second 25 pounder along with a supply truck, because it's time to get serious about a push on that flank, and I decide to target locations where I think the Germans are most likely to be. I don't have sight on anything at all. But another HS-129 comes in and targets one of my Churchills before my anti-aircraft units can effectively engage it. You can see the Crusader there on the road firing up. The pack also appears in the tree line and takes out a machine gun carrier. But there's still no sign of any Germans in front of us in the trees, and the front line marker's been pretty static, so I decide to push the infantry forward, and I retask one of the 25 pounders to fire on the pack's last known position. As my infantry begins to move out from the village, it spots a couple of Fallschirmjäger squads in the next stand of trees, so I call in mortar fire in their position. But there's a HS-129 in the area, and it flies in and targets the mortar. So it does manage to get a couple of rounds off, and again my anti-aircraft units aren't able to engage the aircraft early enough, and the mortar's lost. So I've now got both my 25 pounders hitting the trees where the Fallschirmjägers were, and one of the squads appears to have pulled back. I'm hoping I can force an advantage now, and I call in more infantry reinforcements. But there's a Focke-Wulf 190 comes in and makes a bombing run. The anti-aircraft gun seemed to engage it earlier this time, but they still can't prevent it from making its attack. So the infantry down there is pinned. The artillery has finally driven back one of the Fallschirmjäger squads, but most of my infantry is also pinned, so we can't take advantage of the retreat again. And in the centre left, one of my squads draws attention from a Fallschirmjäger squad and a sniper. The Dingo and the Vickers both engage the Fallschirmjägers, but they again do little damage to it, don't really have much of an impact on it. And back over on the left, my latest infantry reinforcements are moving up, and the 25 pounders have switched to the remaining Fallschirmjäger squad to target it, and my infantry is able to push forward behind the barrage when it recovers its morale. As you can see, I'm bringing up an AVRE on the left now, and on the right there's a recce squad going up to explore whether the Germans have pushed anything into that gap in my front line. Fortunately they haven't, and the scout car's able to push it back. On the left, it looks like I could take the next tree line, but you can see the German reinforcements are coming in. And you can also see that there's an off-map artillery barrage coming in on the village here. There's not much in the village, but what is there is wiped out. The Dingo command car and the Vickers heavy machine gun and the remnants of the infantry. So I'm trying to move my infantry forward. One of the squads is visible beyond the tree line and it's pinned down. I've got the 25 pounders providing support, and the other two squads are able to move up into the trees without taking any fire. An HS-129 comes in again, targets one of my Churchills and takes it out. So the AVRE is now moving up, they're just about in position. There's another HS-129 comes in from one of the central sort of air reinforcement points. Has to fly across about 2/3 of the map, so my anti-aircraft guns have a better chance to engage it. And they do that, but the plane's still able to make its attack on the AVRE. Fortunately, the tank survives this time. But you can see in the top right there's a Kübelwagen OP that's calling in off-map artillery barrage on my infantry, and it's effectively pinned it down. It does a hell of a lot of damage there. So with the Germans falling back, I could have pushed forward if I had the infantry to do it. As usual, it's the same story. My infantry's wiped out by the artillery. So we've reached a bit of a stalemate there. I have brought up, or I'm bringing up a couple of Shermans that are moving up towards the crossroads on the left. But you can see the front line is pushed pretty forward into my areas. The Germans 52%. There's another Focke-Wulf 190 attack on my infantry that wipes out the last of the infantry and sends the AVRE into retreat. So I begin to lose the ground that I have managed to make up there, and I just use the 25 pounders to hit the Germans' last known positions and prevent them from pushing forward if I can. So I call in more infantry reinforcements for the left flank. I only have the tanks here at the moment, obviously, and it's pretty risky to move them up, but I do want to try to keep the German guessing, and I think that if I move up the tanks behind the cover of the trees, he'll hopefully think that I've still got some infantry in there and won't rush forward. So I do inch those Shermans up behind the tree line there, and the 25 pounders are still firing on the German positions. So it wasn't that strong. He had some sort of 4-man squads, I think, was what he had left there. I've brought a Challenger in on the right hand side. I'm going to move that up to where the recce squad is and just provide a bit of presence there and try and build up some forces on the right. I just want to make sure that I've got enough there to hold off any German advance. But HS-129s, 2 of them appear in the centre and they move over to the left. Anti-aircraft guns engage them, but again they're able to go through with their attack, and I lose one of the Shermans. The other one's suppressed, forced to fall back. Over on the right hand side, the Challenger moves up and engages the sniper, I think. But then it moves forward again, engages the pack, and the pack is able to take out the Challenger with its second shot. That was a bit of a waste. Over on the left, my infantry has now arrived. There's a Vickers heavy machine gun there and a Dingo command car to give everything an extra command point. I call in some more infantry on the right this time, and finally able to sneak my recce troops forward. I also call in a priest self-propelled gun there. But it's been quiet for quite a while. The Germans still control sort of 51% of the map, and they're happy to just hold that and keep the points ticking up. So I begin moving my infantry on the left up into defensive positions around the Sherman and the AVRE. You can see the damage that's been done by the German aircraft and artillery in that field in particular. So over on the right, my infantry's moving up, and I'm waiting for the priest still to arrive. It just appearing on screen now. But the Germans call in another off-map artillery barrage as this advance is just getting underway, and everything practically is wiped out. There's another HS-129 attack, follows that barrage in, and it targets the AVRE, but fortunately the tank survives again. But once again, just when I think I might be getting an advantage, the artillery stops me dead in my tracks. Over on the right, my infantry started to move forward. It is engaged and forced into cover, but it's not pinned. The remnants of the infantry on the left have recovered enough morale to push towards the cover in the trees, and as they do so, they spot a fresh German squad in a tank. In fact, I think it's a STUG lying further up beyond the trees. So I'm calling in smoke from the 25 pounders to cover their advance, and then switch to HE to try and suppress them. This is infantry over in the centre right, now pushing forward. It's engaged by the HMG in the building over there, and it's also engaged by a Flak 41.
It's dangerous here.
It is dangerous there. Another German air attack comes in over on the left, Focke-Wulf 190 again. I'd been moving my anti-aircraft units forward, so they weren't able to engage it. Scores a near miss on the AVRE. Doesn't manage to suppress it, fortunately, but it's quickly followed in by an HS-129. AA does engage that, but it's able to go through with its attack and destroy the Sherman, and then a Focke-Wulf comes in and bombs the infantry by the AVRE, along with an off-map artillery barrage. So again, hammered and almost wiped out. In the village in the centre left, I've got more infantry up there, and I'm moving in a Honey Stewart as well to support them. We are able to push map control back to 50-50 for a few seconds, but my units being pinned and falling back on the left flank and in the centre right again quickly give the Germans 51% control. I'm wary of more German air attacks coming in, so I'm bringing in a third Crusader on the left flank. But obviously I need a lot of infantry there as well. And on the right hand side, I've remembered finally that I brought in a priest and I target the pack on the far right flank, because I do want to try and make a push up that road as well. I'm bringing in some infantry for that purpose. On the left we spot a Fallschirmjäger squad breaking cover and crossing that field in the open, and a squad also appears in the trees right ahead of us. So the AVRE, having been bombed and hammered by all sides, finally gets a shot in on the German and is able to suppress them. It forces the infantry to fall back. On the right I've destroyed the pack, and I'm moving the infantry in the recce squad forward now to scout out that area. I reckon there'll be more there. The priest is currently targeting a supply jeep, but when we spot heavy machine gun in the town at the crossroads, I retarget the priest to cover that, to lay down some smoke, but it doesn't fire quickly enough to save my scouts. So we've got the infantry and the Vickers moving up here. I do take a bit of fire, but then the first smoke shell lands, and we're able to continue the advance from that point on. Back over on the left, the German Fallschirmjägers have reappeared in the trees, and the AVRE engages them and is able to wipe them out. And the other Fallschirmjäger squad continues to push in towards the centre, and I lose sight of it behind the tree line there. And I'd spotted more German infantry moving up behind that squad, so I get my 25 pounders to target that location, or one of them does. The other 25 pounder continues to shoot at the Germans that moves in towards the trees. But I don't think the 25 pounder attacking the reinforcements is that effective. They don't seem to take much damage. So the reinforcements have moved too far forward for that to be effective. Over on the right, the infantry moving forward behind the smoke when a Fallschirmjäger squad appears in the left flank in the trees, so they stop to engage that. And as they're doing that, I'm not surprised when an ME-109 attack comes in. They strafe my infantry. And I'm also not surprised when a Focke-Wulf 190 also comes in and makes a bombing run on them. So the ME-109s swing around to make another pass. Over on the left, I've got the 25 pounders to target the German infantry when they appeared in the trees, and they quickly pin the Fallschirmjägers down. There's also a command squad there, and that gets pinned by the fire, and then eventually they're both forced to fall back. But as you can see over on the right hand side, the German aircraft are just loitering, strafing my infantry at will. I don't have anything to oppose them at all on this side. But on the ground I was able to force the Fallschirmjägers to surrender, so that was the one piece of good news. And I was determined to get at least 1 point, so I decided to push the units in the centre left forward, but HS-129s came in and took out both of the Honey Stuarts that were supporting that advance. So once again, I'm halting all my advances. The Germans, as you can see, have strongly reinforced right across the front line. And my 25 pounders are running low on ammo, so I've got little prospect of pushing them back anywhere.
We can't take this anymore.
So I'm trying to build up a force again on the left, but most of the units, or half the units that are there, practically are anti-aircraft units. And as you can see, the Germans are pushing forward on the left. I don't think I'm going to have any trouble holding them off, but I'm not going to be able to make any advance. Over on the right hand side, I've brought in a second priest to try and relieve some of the pressure on the infantry that's been pinned by the heavy machine gun. And I bring in an off-map spotter. You can see it moving up the road on the right hand side. To bring in I'm going to try a barrage and then a charge forward there. Back on the left, the AVRE moves into line of sight of a Panzerfaust team, Fallschirmjäger Pioneer Squad and STUG 3. You can see the STUG 3 along the road by the wall. The AVRE obligingly turns its side armour onto the STUG and it takes it out. So over on the right now, I've got more infantry moving up. The off-map artillery barrage is due to come in shortly, so hoping that the infantry can come up and follow in behind that barrage and push that flank back. So there's a squad and heavy machine gun there at the moment, but as the barrage comes in, let's see that there's another 3 German infantry squads moving up in trucks along that road. So the barrage does effectively pin down the units at the crossroads, but there's plenty of reinforcements there moving up, you can see, to prevent any advance. On the left I've got more infantry coming in, and I've moved up a crocodile which is moving in towards the centre left, stopping off to shoot at any Germans it sees. And over in the town, HS-129 flies in and takes out my OP tank. So So at one point I thought I was facing about 10 German aircraft. In reality they were just swinging round about and coming in to make strafing runs, but it seemed like they were constant. So definitely a major factor in winning this battle. Oh, I've given away the result, sorry, spoilers. The infantry just could not move because of the air power. And I think, to be honest, I'd given up by this point mentally. There was no smoke there, you could see for the infantry to advance behind. In the centre, the crocodile again gets into a position where it can engage the Fallschirmjägers there. But you can see in the neutral mode the weight of forces that the Germans have. I've hardly made a dent in them at all. He's picked a good line, a good defensive line. You can see there's trees running right across from left flank across the town on the right. So he held that position. He was a bit further forward on the left. I was able to push him back out of that farm, but didn't really make any sort of impact on him. And over on the right hand side you can see the front line there's buckled, which gives him more than enough percentage control to rack up the victory points. And that's how the battle ended. So the battle ran for the full 40 minutes. Didn't quite manage to get 2,500 points, but Grobby was the clear winner, both in terms of points and in terms of the kills. So I had no points at all. I had just over 500 kills, but Grobby had more than 6 times that. He had 3,130. So very clearly the winner, and it shows how seldom I was able to destroy his units. Those 2-star Fallschirmjägers are tough. I found it almost impossible to destroy them, or even to suppress them without having heavy artillery fire to support the infantry. And I just didn't destroy any of his vehicles, I don't think, apart from maybe the odd truck or Kugelwagen. But by comparison, he had packs, aircraft, infantry, off-map artillery, all with multiple kills. So a battle I quite enjoyed. Again, lots of learning points for me. Having watched it back several times making the video, I can see so many things that I can improve on. But the feedback that I've had from you guys has been really useful in the past, so again I would welcome any comments that you would want to make. Value any advice that you have, and I hope that you will rate the video, and please subscribe if you want to encourage this sort of content, and I hope to see you again in the next part. Cheers.